So, when you think of ancient Sumer, what comes to mind? Probably things like the first cities, right? Or maybe the invention of writing, or those massive temples. But what if one of their most revolutionary inventions was something way quieter, something kind of hidden in the dirt? Well, today, we're going to dig into the story of a surprisingly important piece of tech that really did change everything: the Sumerian seed drill.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First up, we'll look at what makes this invention so special, this unsung hero of theirs. Then we'll get into the huge problem it was designed to solve in the first place. From there, we'll see exactly how this clever tool worked, how it helped fuel an entire empire, and finally, what it tells us about the hidden engines that really drive history forward.
Okay, so let's dive right in. We're heading back to ancient Mesopotamia to talk about the Sumerians, a civilization that is, rightly famous for world-changing innovations that went way beyond just building cities and creating writing.
I mean, just look at this list. It's incredible. The Sumerians gave us some of the world's first true cities, the very first form of writing, cuneiform, and these massive irrigation projects that literally made the desert bloom. They were, without a doubt, master organizers.
But with all these huge, headline-grabbing firsts, you gotta ask, right? What was the invention that made the biggest difference in their day-to-day survival? What was the actual tool that powered this entire civilization from the ground up?
And believe it or not, the answer is this humble device. It's definitely not as famous as cuneiform, but the single-tube seed drill was an absolute game-changer. And to really get why, we need to understand the massive problem it was built to solve.
Now, to really appreciate why this was such a revolution, we have to put ourselves in their shoes. For ancient farmers, the challenge was immense. How do you get seeds in the ground without wasting them when every single one matters?
So, the old way of doing things was, well, pretty simple. A farmer would just walk through a plowed field, grab handfuls of seed from a bag, and just toss them. That's it. This method is called broadcasting.
And man, when you put the two methods side by side, the difference is just night and day. On one side, you've got the total chaos of broadcasting, wasteful and incredibly risky. And on the other, the seed drill brings order, control, and reliability. In a world with zero safety nets, that one shift from risk to reliability, that meant everything.
Let's really break down those risks, because they were serious. Seeds scattered on the surface are basically an open buffet for birds. If the birds don't get them, they could just dry out in the sun before they even get a chance to sprout. If they fall too close together, the plants end up choking each other out, competing for water and nutrients. And every single seed that's wasted isn't just lost food. It's a piece of the next harvest that you've just gambled away.
So, faced with this incredibly high-stakes problem, the Sumerians did what they did best. They innovated. They figured out a much smarter way to sow their fields.
And the solution wasn't some crazy complex machine. It was a simple, elegant idea. Just a funnel and a tube attached to a plow. That's it. As the plow cuts a furrow, the drill drops a seed right into that freshly opened, protected soil.
The process itself is just beautiful in its logic. The plow opens the ground, a seed drops down the tube right into that perfect little opening. The soil then naturally covers it up. Plowing and planting, which were two separate, really hard jobs, just became one single efficient motion.
And that, right there, is the real genius of it. The Sumerians didn't invent plowing, and they didn't invent sowing. They just figured out a brilliant way to fuse them together. You know, this kind of combination is honestly one of the most powerful forms of innovation in all of history.
Okay, so now we get to the really cool part. How does a simple farming tool end up feeding an entire empire? Well, it all comes down to the incredible ripple effect of efficiency.
The immediate benefits would have been obvious to any farmer. Your seeds are now planted in these neat, orderly rows. You're wasting way less of your precious seed. This leads to way more consistent and healthy crops. And the whole process saves a massive amount of time and effort.
There's this quote from our source material that just nails it. It says, "In farming, technical details decide whether a harvest is weak or strong." These aren't just minor tweaks we're talking about. In the ancient world, tiny technical details like seed placement could literally be the difference between a community thriving or starving.
So you start to see this powerful chain reaction. Wasting less seed directly leads to more reliable harvests. More reliable harvests year after year create a stronger, more predictable food supply. And that stability? That becomes the foundation for absolutely everything else.
And here's the bottom line. A surplus of grain creates a surplus of possibility.
It's what frees people up to be more than just farmers. It's what feeds the workers building the ziggurats, the scribes developing writing, and the administrators running the cities. This simple tool was literally powering a complex society.
And all this brings us to our final section, where we can kind of zoom out and think about what this ancient invention really means for how we look at the past.
I just love this quote. Technology isn't just about raw power. It's about intelligence applied to a problem. The seed drill is perfect proof that ancient people weren't just toiling away. They were observing, thinking, and engineering better solutions. They were working smarter, not just harder.
And that's the big takeaway here. We are so often dazzled by the glamorous achievements of civilization, the art, the laws, the incredible monuments, but all of it, every single bit of it, rests on a quiet foundation of practical ingenuity, on tools just like the seed drill that made a food surplus possible in the first place.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. The seed drill was a hidden engine of its time. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are the quiet, practical, and maybe overlooked inventions that are powering our own world right now?